Oh, hi. No need to worry. This is all going according to plan. You see, I built this massive ship with artifacts from across the multiverse, and we will win this battle for sure.
Captain, you said you paid $30 for the ship? Ah!
There goes the deck, Chief. Actually, I do have a secret, though. This is a one-way mission, if you're catching my drift. She took the kids and the dog and the house, so I wanted to go out in a blaze of glory. The ship is exiling itself as we speak, and the final blow is going to be a massive blaze of glory. You won't see it coming. My crew sure didn't.
Captain, your lawyer called. Apparently you get to keep everything. Your ex just wants an even split. She said her kids need their father just as much as their mother. Captain? Ah!
Sammy, Wildcat Captain. For 4 red white, you get a 4/4 legendary creature human artificer rogue with double strike and vigilance that says spells you cast have affinity for artifacts, meaning they cost 1 less to cast for each artifact you control.
Well, the captain at least had the right idea. This deck takes advantage of what I would say is the strongest mechanic that Wizards has ever printed. Affinity. Spells you cast just cost less for each thing that you control that it has affinity for. So in this case, spells we control have affinity for artifacts, meaning if we have an artifact on the field, then the spells we control cost 1 less to cast. All of them. You know me. I know me. We don't just have 1 artifact in this deck, we have quite a bit more. As I'm making this video, there are 41 different artifacts or ways to make artifacts, and some of those 41 are just artifacts that make artifacts, and I only counted those once. So there's actually more if you think about it, but don't think too hard about it, because you need to save all of your thinking for the mad dash to victory that this deck needs. If you were one of the unlucky bunches of people on the Discord that got to end up on the receiving end of this brute force monstrosity, then you know just how much ooey gooey fun that this deck is to play against. And if you want to help me test out decks or just want to check out what everyone else is building on the Power Budget Discord, that link is definitely in the description. It's free. Do it. Essentially, this deck is a burning ship that we want to nosedive into whatever threat we can. And now, is it easy to pilot? No, but that's why you're here. I'll tell you exactly what you need to do to take the reins of this flying OSHA violation and pilot it like a pro. And because it barely costs anything, or if you proxy it, nothing. There is no guilt in making this as a deck where its sole purpose is to show the salty goblin munchers what true solitaire looks like. And while you do it, I'll show you what a good deal looks like.
Into the AM. Into the AM is an apparel company with one goal in mind. Make the best, most comfortable shirts that you can possibly find with unbelievably vibrant prints. They print their own high-quality graphic tees and stock sharp, stylish polos, terrific tank tops, crime pants, and honestly, yeah, I can try and make a bunch of alliterations. These products genuinely exceeded my expectations, far more than I could ever imagine. And they constantly run deals for pretty much like all their products. And I mean like deals. I've seen things get up to 80% off. I've seen shirts for as low as $5. Deals like this keep rotating quickly, so you gotta check in and get them quick. And then even if you don't get anything on sale, the shirts are still well worth it. Into the AM has over 40,000 5-star product reviews. It definitely shows. They have eco-friendly inks. They back each purchase with a 30-day money-back guarantee, hassle-free returns, and lightning fast shipping. They want you to be happy with every purchase, and I absolutely know that I am. So go into theam.com/power10 for 10% off everything. Yeah, including the existing deals I was just telling you about. It stacks, but the good kind of stacks. So just use Power 10 at checkout or click the link in the description. It is literally money you're leaving on the table. Do it. Now back to the program.
So why does this deck burn through itself in the process? What even does that? Well, let's show you how exactly we get to doing what we want to do. Then we can take this puppy on one hell of a joyride.
Mystic Forge. For 4 mana, you get an artifact that says you may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may cast artifact spells and color the spells from the top of your library, and you can tap it and pay a life to exile the top card of your library.
With the amount of artifacts this deck plays around with, not having Mystic Forge would just be stupid. You get to peek at the top of your library and cast it if it's a colorless or an artifact spell. Keep in mind, this does not allow you to play lands. Cheaters. you have to cast things with this. You'll be able to cast roughly a third of the deck off of this one card alone. And the best part of it is, that last ability, for just that one life, you get to open up your third chakra and mollywop them with the rest of your library. And trust me, they better be prepared for what's in store. So where ramp is mostly the vegetables of any deck, here they actually have some thought put behind it. For example, look at these rocks. You got Mind Stone, Hedron Archive, and Dreamstone Hedron. Each of these will cost 2, 4, 6, and then it taps for 1, you pay 1, tap, sack, draw 1. Otherwise it's 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3. So normally the 2 and 4 drop ones, I could see including in pretty much any deck. I'm almost never touching that Dreamstone Hedron though. But in this deck, it's useful because it allows us to dig into our library on an ability that we can activate at our leisure. And since they are all colorless, we won't be needing to pay all that much to get them either. Pretty much, we won't be paying for any of them. We have a ton of artifacts that usually cost just too much to justify having them in a normal deck. Here, like Coveted Jewel, it's good since you draw 3 cards when it enters and it taps immediately for 3 mana. The biggest downside is that they can take it on their turn if we don't block their creatures that are coming in. Newsflash, if we do this right, they don't get a next turn. So for us, it's literally just gonna fill our hand with 3 new cards and keep the train rolling. Gilded Lotus is exactly like Coveted Jewel, except it's a 5-drop artifact. It's called Gilded Lotus instead. It doesn't draw you cards, and it doesn't have an effect that allows people to steal it from. So yeah, it literally just taps for 3. We have pretty much all the 2-drop rocks that either enter untapped and or can tap for some sort of color. And a good number of them don't because they're just good for early game. And believe it or not, we also run a lot of 3-drop rocks. I know it's not a good look for me and my reputation as a 3-drop rock hater, but my lawyer has told me not to comment on these baseless allegations at this time. But honestly, the fact that they don't have color pips in them allow us to tap for any color of mana and enter untapped is the biggest help that we can wish for in a lot of situations. And with this deck, a lot of what we'll do is a mad scramble. So when we get these 3-drop rocks out, a good number of them will either just help us by digging, like the bobbleheads. They all get better the more you have, but I only need 3 of them. These 2 help us dig for more things to do, which trust me is a huge help when we get up against the wall. And this one is great for if you're about to start going off. Just use some sort of latent colorless mana, give it to your commander, and now it's indestructible. For the ease of certainty at least. Or don't. You'll probably have a bunch of protection spells just waiting for you to cast anyway. And that color of mana is really good for us. And I'm gonna explain something, and there's a lot of things like this that I'm gonna explain throughout this video, so just hold your horses. But if you ever get the Everflowing Chalice, you'll notice that the cost is 0. You can multi-kick it for 2 as much as you want, and keep in mind that affinity can reduce that kicker cost. So if you have 12 artifacts out, you can choose to multi-kick it 6 times and reduce it by 12, still paying nothing and being able to immediately tap the chalice for 6. And you can get a similar effect for Ashra Cornucopia, but that's pretty straightforward. For every 3 artifacts, you get a charge counter, and 1 charge counter is equal to 1 mana of any color, which is probably gonna be red. You'll see in a sec. By the time you get Sammy out, you'll probably already have at least 3 artifacts, and with those artifacts, you'll be able to build up the flames of this barreling wreckage with some crazy gusto. So with this much glass, you might as well make a cannon.
Reckless Impulse. For 1 and a red, you get a sorcery that says exile the top 2 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards.
This is why we leave everything behind, including our opponents. Normally with these kinds of impulse draw spells, we have the issue of being forced to play whatever it spits into exile. But that's exactly kind of what we want. Is it 2 lands? Awesome. Play 1 now and the other one the next turn. At this point, there's no real need to play more lands from your hand. And trust me when I say they're much better in your hand right now. And that is because we also have Embrace the Unknown. This one has Retrace, so if you get it in your graveyard, you can just discard a land and play it again, and again, and again. Now, you get until the end of your next turn with these 2, but there is a hugely important difference that I really have to discuss. Quick! To the void. Wrong void. Help! Anybody?
You see, as we start off this fire, it'll be extremely important that we get this difference down right now. Each spell will either say you may play those cards until end of turn, or until the end of your next turn you may play those cards. So here's what to keep in mind. If it doesn't say next turn, then you have to play it before the turn is over. So act on impulse doesn't give you time. You only have this turn to do anything with those cards. If you don't use them by the end of the turn, you'll just leave them in exile forever. This is also true for Ecstatic Beauty and Rob the Archives. So far, these are the only 3 that are in this deck that don't say you have until the end of your next turn. For those 3, you only have until the end of the turn that you cast it. However, all of the rest of the cards I've included say you may play them until the end of your next turn, meaning we can play them right away. And we can also wait a full turn cycle to use them all the way through to the end of that next turn. Timing restrictions still apply to all of these cards that they put in exile, and since they say you may play them and not you may cast them, the lands they exile are also fair game as long as you have available land drops to play. So for the most part, bar those 3 notable exceptions, all the ones that I've included give you a turn to breathe, but hopefully you won't need it.
These spells are all amazing because any generic mana cost is almost reduced to 0. So here, we only have to worry about the colored mana pips, and most of them will absolutely be red. With spells like Inspired Tinkering, we get to access the next 3 cards of our library for 1 mana, and it leaves behind 3 treasures for us, which also helps us with their affinity. And with a card like Ignite the Future, we get a nice 2 uses out of a single spell, and not only do we get to spend essentially 1 mana for the next 3, but once you have the option to flash it back, you could also do that for what they thought was a fair 8 mana for just 1 mana. And once again, similar to the Everflowing Chalice, flashback is also reducible with affinity. So for 1 mana, out of the grave, get the next 3, and we also get to play those cards for free if we want. Specifically with this card and the way it's worded, I know, more rules. It starts by saying you can play those spells as normal anyway. It just also allows you to do it for free. We have the option. You don't have to take it. The problem is with things like Cascade, if we hit an X spell, X has to be 0. With this, we can choose to cast the X. So do that if you get an X spell off of this. The way that we've been getting to cast stuff for free has been by reducing it by a metric heck ton of mana. What we're still technically doing is paying the full costs. We just get to cheat it in the best way possible. So with things like Commune with Lava, we want to cast it the normal way. We don't want to pay for it without paying that mana cost. That would just be sad. But what isn't sad is what you can do with that card. Good gravy. You get an X in that cost, and yeah, it's reduced by the number of artifacts, so you can make it quite large. And in my testing, you can usually get X to equal anywhere between 10 and 30. Pretty easily. So I choose whatever feels right at that moment in time. Or you can just do the sorcery speed but better version, Zenith Festival. I've actually cast this on Cascade triggers just to get it into the grave because that harmonize ability is too dang useful. And since our commander is a 4 power commander, it will at minimum have a 4 cards to look at. But let's be honest with ourselves, usually when I play this card, I'm gonna exile the rest of my library. No cap. On God. 6, 7?
Freeze, dirtbag! You're busted!
Oh, really? The joke police, huh? If I make it cringe, the meme will die! I am a martyr! Once we have about 30 artifacts out on the field, we will have enough to just start blasting. And then we can keep blasting them with spell after spell from the last third of our game plan, the fiery Blazes of Glory.
Blaze. For X under red, you get a sorcery that says Blaze deals X damage to any target.
What a simple card. By its design, it seems like Wizards wanted us to spend as much mana as humanly possible on our turn to shotgun blast an opponent in the face with Rock Salt. But what they didn't seem to account for is the amount of hate a Boros Space Wizard with remote control healing crystals and free time can do. With this deck, they don't get just 1 slug to the face. We preloaded 10 boomsticks with enough seasoning to send them straight to Hell's Kitchen. Once we gather enough rocks in our quarry, we can just bludgeon people to death, Insano mob style, with spells on the stack that don't have to act impressed that the dragon player got out Gnawbone for the 17 trillionth time. No, yeah, that was really cool, yeah. This deck comes with 10 free tickets for Mr. Bones' Wild Ride. We don't necessarily need all 10, but there are definitely some that we want to keep a closer eye on in case we get asked to pick a favorite child. Well, in that case, our favorite child is Jaya's Immolating Inferno. It is a legendary sorcery, so we can't cast it unless we have a legendary creature or planeswalker, and since you shouldn't be casting it without your commander anyway, it's not an issue. You get to bully 3 targets, and since there are usually, hopefully, 3 opponents, you can pick on them. So if X ends up being 30, then we just light them up for most of their life total, and that's probably enough. And if that's not enough to kill them, you have 9 more chances at doing this. The rest of the effects have some sort of flavor of Blaze's effect, but better. Some spam click the rematch button, others give them Gideon spot treatment. You'll find that one gives extra brownie points, one just lets you pay for a Disney Fast Pass, one lets you cast another spell for free 99, and one finally forces them to bathe in fire. But at least they bathe. All of these allow you to just point at them and go, "You," and then wipe them and that smug face off the mortal plane, while you take the fastest 20-minute turn your playgroup has ever seen. But there is an obvious assumption that we are making here, so the next thought might be, what do we do if our opponents give themselves Hexproof or Shroud? I don't know, but hey, here's Volcanic Geyser. And that's the game plan. Make them groan in pure agonizing excitement as you keep saying, it might not be a win, I gotta play it out, while getting snubbed by the 14th land in a row. But if that's just what you want, you could run the $30 version that I made. I put some really fun artifacts in the considering tab though on Moxfield, some more expensive ones. Some of which are just here because they can actually give us many more powerful things to do with our turns. And others are God Pharaoh statue. Don't touch me.
Crackle with Power. For triple X, red, you get a sorcery that says Crackle with Power deals 5 times X damage to each of up to X targets.
This can pretty easily be the card that ends up winning the game. Very, very early on. Well, it all happens pretty much between turns 4 and 7, but I mean, the sooner in your 25-minute turn, you'll be able to win with this. With 9 artifacts and 2 red mana, you can deal 15 damage to 3 targets. 12 artifacts does 20, 4 targets, and if we get a normal 30, we just did 50 damage to up to 10 targets, which makes this much better than any of the single target damage spells. I would probably get rid of the claws for this. The end stone is really, really funny and honestly perfect for this deck. Just be extremely careful to not cast anything once the library is gone. We have an ingenuity engine in this deck already, so if you get to the end, you can just use its ability to sacrifice the end stone, then just go guns a-blazing. And sure, your life total becomes 20 every time you end your turn, but that really doesn't matter because either we win it now or we just die at our next upkeep. So this slots pretty perfectly, especially in the place of Book of Ross. It's gonna do us a lot more work there than anywhere else. And while Dreamstone Hedron and Gear for Orrery are great cards, I would probably replace them with Chromatic Orrery and Mycosynth Lattice. The costs don't actually line up, but in this deck, the cost is just a number. These allow us to make use of our mana for whatever we want, and the Orrery can draw some cards while the Lattice makes it so that we have nothing but artifacts, making Sammy's ability and Mystic Forge's ability a lot better. But be careful, if these are out together, the Chromatic Orrery's draw ability won't draw you anything. That's just called a non-bow. A non-combo. Radiant Lotus will allow us to cash in a heck ton of artifact tokens or tapped artifacts to keep fueling the game plan. I'd probably replace Gilded Lotus for this one if you're really gonna want this in there, but Dokkan Orrery is good because apparently the one thing this artifact deck needs is Orreries. But with this, everything is flashy, so you don't have to wait and cast things like sorceries. You can just run the true mono red counter magic by removing your opponents from the stack instead. And finally, if your turns are really just not long enough, you can add Aetherflux Reservoir into the mix. This, in your deck, means you better keep track of every spell you've cast that turn, because each time you try and run the chain, even if it's not on the field, it'll continue to track how many spells were cast and gain you that much life in increasing increments. It's really just a stupid payoff for investing the time and effort into forcing everyone to watch you put together a Sammy-themed jigsaw puzzle. You'll gain 15, then 16, then 17, murder someone, 18, then 19, then 20, murder part 2, too fast, to murder. At that point, you might not even need to use any of the burn spells, because I am the burn.
And if you like this deck, you can buy the budget version using the Mana Pool affiliate link below. For my research, they've got the best cart optimizer in the business, so I'm just glad they're helping support the channel. Click that link and check them out. And I'll leave the Moxfield list down there too if you want to add any of the upgraded cards on that list. If you've already subscribed and turned on that bell and want to show more support, you could always help me directly by becoming a member. This is the most direct way to help me make more content. It starts as low as $1 a month and can get you special shoutouts like our Decklist tier member Picard 001, or our higher powers, Ezelvor, Faraday, Angela Ryder, White Chill, Kuristofa Kusaba, Falopa, Charles, Peanut Butter Steve, Hayao, Filthy Casual, and A-Train.
And if Super Solitaire isn't your speed, but you still just want a combo deck, you can check out this Gev deck that I built. Or if you even don't want a combo deck, but still want to see it, I highly recommend checking it out. The intro is one of the funniest that I've made. Just watch it. Can I go?
No.